This one is an absolute must. All successful students do this. Literally every single student that I know who is successful, does well, gets lots of A stars, they all do this, which is... Hello everyone, my name is Christina. I'm a medical student studying at Newcastle University, and in this video I just wanted to share with you guys some of the best habits, or some of the habits that I think lots of successful students have. I thought this would be a good video because obviously back to school season is around the corner, or I guess it's arrived, and yeah, I just thought it'd be really cool to share with you guys some of the things that you guys should maybe try and think of adopting or trying to get in the habit of if you want to be a great student this academic year. So I'm just going to get straight into it. My first habit is be proactive. Being proactive just means that you're going to try and find the solution to a problem before you try and like complain about the problem, basically. So if you've got like a math question that's really tricky and like you're stuck, don't try and stop and then complain like I can't do this, or I need to get the teacher to help me. Try and find a solution, ask the person next to you, check your textbook, Google it online, try and be proactive and find the answers to things before you just kind of sit and do nothing, if that makes sense. Being proactive just means that you're always working towards finding a solution rather than just sitting and doing nothing. I think being proactive makes you a successful student because it means that rather than stopping as soon as you're faced with a problem, you're always going to be trying to find the solution. Sometimes you will be able to find it, sometimes maybe not, but at least always you're working towards it. And it means that you're going to be able to develop like perseverance, drive, whatever the word is that I'm looking for. You're going to be able to just develop amazing qualities as a result of being proactive as well. Similar to the last one, but also ask questions. If you want to go beyond the spec of what you're learning, or not necessarily the spec, but if you want to just really push past the regular teaching in your lessons, always be asking questions about things. So if you're in biology learning about the cell structure, ask, what other organelles are there? Is this everything? Just always be asking questions. Try and just develop a habit of being curious. Sometimes, during my A-levels, I think in year 12 and 13, I was not always, but I sometimes would stay back after lessons and ask my teachers questions. Sometimes it was maybe asking questions to do with my homework. Sometimes it was just asking questions because I was curious. But I think getting into this habit is really good because it means that you're not just going to learn what's in your lessons and that's it. Because to be honest, sometimes your teachers won't tell you absolutely everything. Sometimes they do leave things out. And I don't know whether they do this to kind of push you to do more independent learning or what, but I think getting in the habit of asking questions is always going to be a good thing. And if your teacher is really passionate about their subject, then they'd be more than happy to answer all the questions that you have, to be honest, about their topic or their subject. And it also ties in with being proactive as well. So if you're always finding the solution, asking questions will help with that. So I think these two kind of work hand in hand. This one is an absolute must. All successful students do this. Literally every single student that I know who is successful, does well, gets lots of A stars, they all do this, which is practice spaced repetition and active recall. There have been so many studies to show and highlight the fact that spaced repetition, which is pretty much spacing out your revision over a long period of time, and active recall, which is rather than just highlighting or writing notes, actively try and recall it from your memory. There's so much study and research to show that this is the best way to try and retain information for the long term. So in terms of spaced repetition, I think a great way to do this is obviously flashcards. Flashcards is pretty much the best method of tying in both active recall, trying to remember something, and spaced repetition, because you're practicing it, one day after you study, 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, and so on. But yeah, I think Ali Abdaal has an amazing revision series all about spaced repetition and active recall, so I'll link that down below for you guys if you're interested. But yeah, as I said before, like literally all the people I know who are really smart, there is an element of, I guess, genetics in the really smart people, but obviously people who like work hard to do well in their exams, pretty much all of them do flashcards in some form or practice spaced repetition and active recall. Have a dedicated study space. I think if you have a dedicated study space at your house, whether it's in your bedroom, on the kitchen table, maybe you've got an actual study, try and avoid somewhere with like loud noise or lots of distractions, maybe by the window with like a massive road outside or something. Try and have a dedicated space so that each time you're in that space, you're literally in like the study mode, I guess. I think that will just help with always making sure that you've not got any distractions and you're always in the right mode to study, because you want a place where you're going to be really focused. So having a dedicated space for that, I think, will try and increase your chances of being properly focused on what you're doing. If you want some tips on how to be productive, avoid distractions, and stop letting your phone kind of distract you when you're studying, I have a whole entire video all about this. It's called How to Be More Productive. I'll link that down in the description box below. So this one isn't really a habit, but it's just having the understanding that school isn't everything. Lots of successful students know that despite the fact that they want to do really well and get really good grades, they know that school isn't absolutely everything. It's not the be all and end all. They have an identity outside of school, because if you make your school and your grades absolutely everything about you, then as soon as maybe you aren't feeling well and you start to not do well in school, you'll just start to feel down completely, because it's like your whole identity, which is your grades, if they start to slip, you'll just feel terrible. So understand that school isn't everything. You're only going to school for like, is it 15 years, 3 to 18? Like, it's not absolutely everything. Yes, it determines a lot of your future, but it's not the be all and end all. Don't make your grades the core of your identity. I'm an A-star student, I've got all A stars. Don't make that your identity, because later on, if you start to slip, it can lead to some major self-confidence issues. So absolutely, yes, work hard, work as hard as you can, reach for all the goals that you have, getting into certain universities, getting into certain courses, but just realize that school is not everything. You are a whole entire person outside of school, outside of your academics. So just have an understanding of that. Set a schedule. So I think this is becoming more and more popular, having like a study schedule or a study plan, but a lot of the really intelligent students that I know, a lot of the really top students, they always have a study plan. Not always, I guess there's always anomalies and stuff. There's going to be anomalies to all of these habits and tips, by the way, but I think it's really good if you have a dedicated study plan. So Monday to Friday, after school, I'm going to study for this amount of time, I'm going to study these subjects, and just kind of do that for every single day. And I think it'll just make your studying a lot more structured. So a bit of a weird one, but avoid multitasking. When it comes to revision and studying, you want to give it your undivided attention. You don't want to be doing, something else while you're studying. You don't want to be listening to music that's got like words in it. You can listen to like instrumental music that's got no words. It's just something in the background. But I personally think that like listening to songs with words in them kind of distracts you a bit. So try not to multitask when you're studying. Make sure that that is the only thing that you're focusing on, just to make sure that it goes in fully and you're taking in everything into your head fully. When it comes to studying, you really want to make sure that that's the only thing you're doing at that time. Another great habit to do is to set goals. So having a clear idea of where you want to be in a month's time, in 6 months time, at the end of the school year is really, really good, because it means that you know what you're working towards. So this can be literally anything from, in my biology GCSE, I want to be getting an A by the end of the month, or at the end of the year in my math A-level, I want to be getting 70%, something like that. Just set a goal so that you know what you're working towards. I also have a video entirely dedicated to how to set goals and actually achieve them. So if you're wondering how you can like make sure that your goals are super achievable and you're definitely going to achieve them, make sure to check out that video. I'll link that in the description box below. Be optimistic. So even though it's really easy to look at really smart people or successful students and see that they're like, they've gotten all A stars, or they've gotten like 4 A stars at A-level and stuff like this, but they were always optimistic. Just because you see someone who's done really well at the end of their journey doesn't mean that they didn't have like little wobbles in between. It's highly likely that if you're really aiming high and you really want to achieve good grades, you might have times where you maybe get a C or something, which I know that's good to some people, but obviously it's not so great to others. There's going to be times where you maybe don't do as well, but you just need to stay optimistic. You just have to have the right mindset and still believe in yourself, still continue to persevere through it. Each time you have a setback, or maybe you identify a weakness, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Just try and work on that weakness as much as you can. Try and turn that into a positive. Maybe I was terrible at differential equations in maths A-level, but I eventually turned it into a positive. It eventually became something that I was really good at. So just be optimistic. I don't know if optimistic is the right word, but pretty much just try and persevere through things. Try and have the right mindset. Don't see failures or negatives, weaknesses, don't see them entirely as a negative thing, because they definitely can be a positive. There's this amazing quote which I absolutely love. Something about a smooth ship never made a good sailor, or something like that. But yeah, pretty much if you have an easy breezy journey across college, across school, you won't become a really good student. You'll just be like an average student, in my opinion. So if you have a couple of setbacks, a couple of wobbles, I think it'll just make you persevere more and eventually come out stronger. stay organized. So the calendar app, notebooks, reminder apps, they are your friend, guys. Stay organized, stay on top of deadlines, stay on top of revision. You know, if you're going to make a study plan, that's great. Make sure you set reminders to actually do the studying. If you've got an exam coming up, put that in your calendar app. Make sure that you've got a reminder to always be on top of revision and stuff. Stay organized, stay as organized as possible. Keep all of your important assignments, deadlines, exams in your calendar. Make sure you set reminders to always remind you of them. It's terrible when things like that creep up on you and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got an assignment in a week's time. So maybe try and set reminders for every single week up until that deadline, that you've got this assignment coming up in 3 weeks, you've got it coming up in 2 weeks, you've got it coming up in 1 week. That way you're always being reminded of it. It's always in the back of your mind. Okay, study smart, not hard. Just because, I think I've said this in another video, but just because someone is revising with 10 hours doesn't mean that they're doing good revision. Sometimes it will be, sometimes someone can study for 8 hours and be productive. That is like, wow, well done, gold star. In most cases, just because you're studying like all night, Monday to Friday, doesn't mean that you're making the most of that study time. So what I would say is try and just be very, very smart and productive with your study. Make sure you're in a room where you're undistracted. Make sure that you aren't multitasking. Make sure that you have a plan. Make sure that you have set a goal and you're just being really productive and precise with that study time. And you know, you're using active recall, you're using spaced repetition. Make sure that you're studying smart. So in my opinion, this is not facts or anything, just my opinion, but things that aren't studying smart are things like highlighting notes or you know, copying notes for like the 4th or 5th time. I know some people really love that and it helps them, but I'll be honest, I don't know many students who are like high achievers who do that, who like copy out notes loads and loads of times to remember them. I know it will help you because you're repeating it, but try and, if you can, shift it from rewriting notes loads of times to maybe doing active recall, so things like flashcards. But yeah, try and study smart, guys, not hard. You really want to be leaving each study session feeling like you've actually learned something new. You might feel a bit like, oh, that was such a long study session, like I can't be bothered to do anything right now. That's fine, it means that you've worked hard, but make sure that each time you're leaving a study session, you've actually kind of gained something new. And last but not least is take time out. You really want to have a rest. You really want to take time out for yourself. Every single person I know who's done really well in school, they don't just study constantly, never stop studying. Like they always take time out, they always take breaks. Not just in terms of like, actually I'm studying now, I'm going to take a break, but they take holidays, they go out for football, they, you know, go out for meals, they take breaks, they do take time out for themselves. And you guys should be doing that too. If you've got like huge exams coming up, like your A-levels or your GCSEs, then obviously in the weeks leading up to that, I would say focus. You don't want to take major breaks like a 2-week holiday to Greece or something, but obviously you know, if you're just in the middle of the year, or maybe you know, you're just in your regular term time, then definitely take time out. I really hope this video has been helpful for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. These are just some of the things that I thought of that like lots of, you know, really good students that get good grades tend to do. So I just thought it'd be helpful for you. I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. And get really good grades. To revision and studying, you want to give it your undivided. Make sure that each